So if you're in the market for a low-cost, high-output, small VTX, this guy might be the guy. What's going on, guys? So in this video, we're gonna look at the AKK X2, and this one has been around for a little while, but I think it's good to take a look at. I don't see many people cover it, so I think it's worthy of a breaksteel type bench test. So we're gonna get into that in a few. Full disclosure, this was sent to me by AKK. I was not asked to do a video. I was not asked to do a bench test. They just sent it to me, and I figured, you know what, let's give it a test. So in this video, we're gonna go over some of its components. We're gonna go over the wiring and how you would wire it to your quad, and we're gonna do a quick bench test to see if it outputs what it outputs. So let's get right into that. So inside of the packaging, you get the VTX. You get this foam divider, cardboard divider, the wiring, and you get a small instruction manual. And for those of you who don't have it or would like to look at it, here you go. So if we look at the wiring, we have 6 wires in total, and they're grouped into 2 lines. This line here will go out to your camera, but most of us are gonna hack this apart, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And then we have our power lines here, and then this JST connector, most of us are gonna cut that off here, but this is great for me right now for testing because I could just plug right into it. And we got the 6-pin JST connector here. So this plugs right into the VTX, and I'll go over some of the parts on the VTX in a moment. Let me plug right in here, and you're gonna get like a nice little audible click. 2 of them actually, when that clips in place. So as we look at this here, we've got, starting from left to right, this is our power wire, and this is for 7 to 24 volts. So that is 2 to 6S. Then we got our ground wire. Next to that, we have our yellow wire. That's gonna be our video wire from the camera. And next to that, we have our ground wire going to the camera. Then we have our power wire going to the camera. And that is, that's a 5-volt line. And then we have this green wire is gonna be our smart audio wire. So when we get into wiring, most of us are just gonna cut this off. We're gonna take this green wire and attach it to any TX port on any open UART. We're gonna take this 5-volt and ground. I personally would probably take it out completely, and I like to power the camera off a 12-volt pad if the camera will support it. And the main reason I like to do that is because if there's any fluctuation in voltage, then the camera's not gonna reboot, because it's like, it doesn't go down from, let's say, 5 to 4. When the camera doesn't work on 4 volts, it works on 5. So it'll shut down momentarily and then come back up. I don't like that. So if it fluctuates from 12 to 11, it's still within the operating voltage of the camera. So I like to run that off a pad by itself. So the black and the red here I would remove, and then this yellow wire put to the flight controller, and then the yellow wire from the camera I would put to the flight controller as well, and that'll give you OSD. So if we get into some of the components on this VTX, you can see we've got our channel and power level readout here. We've got a built-in microphone here, and we've got our switch right here. This is, everything's controlled with one switch. Okay, and there's a little bit closer look at that. So if we flip this over onto the back, we have the heat sink here, and all our wiring is labeled. And this also lists the power levels that this is capable of outputting at. We got 25, 200, 500, and 800, and we're gonna get into that. Now, something special here, they offer this in 3 different antenna designs. They have the SMA on a pigtail, which is this one. They have the SMA directly attached here, and then they also have the MMCX directly attached here. So this is a looks like an RG316 cabling, and then this is your standard SMA, and it's got the little mounting tabs on it. So this is going to make my life a little bit easier right now with this test, because I'm not going to have to add a pigtail into this. We're just testing directly off of this. So that's a good thing. So they state this is a 28.5 by 20. Let's go ahead and measure that. So this measures in at, it's about 20.4 by, this is 29. And if we measure it with the wiring installed, we're up to just about 32. And thickness is 9. And if we measure the pigtail, it's about 55.5 millimeters. And for those of you who like to know, the wiring is about 109 millimeters, 110 millimeters. And it weighs in at 9 grams. And if we weigh it with the wiring, oops, grand total of 10. Okay, so as we go into this test, let's check the ambient room temperature. It is 43 degrees Fahrenheit in here. And if I switch that, that's 6.1 C. Ugh. Yeah, so it's chilly, but it's not bad. So just know that going forward into this test, we will try to air cool this, I think. I don't know that it's necessary, but we will see what happens. So for this bench test, we're gonna use the Rotoride edition of the Immersion RC RF power meter. And the only reason that we're using the Rotoride edition is because it comes with a few extras that do not come with the normal one, and it's way cheaper. So there is that. And a lot of you don't like the fact that I'm using this meter. So this is what's going on with this meter. This meter cost me $50, I think like $30 or $50, something like that. And it does a very good job at measuring power outputs. The next step up, unfortunately, you're looking at like a spectrum analyzer or something to that effect, and they're anywhere from 6 to 16 grand. And I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of money to throw around for VTX tests. So if you're interested in helping out, I did start a Patreon page. If you feel I have earned it, all the proceeds from that for now are going to go straight to getting a spectrum analyzer, and we are going to really test these guys out. I have a specific one in mind. It's about 6 grand. So if we can collectively put enough money in the pot, then I will add that to the channel and we can test these. And you know, if not, that's no big deal either. We will continue testing with this. So that's what's going on with that. I feel it's very accurate. The only downfall to it is the pigtails, and I have gotten a bunch of pigtails. I do plan, I think I'm gonna send these out to be tested, just to see what kind of losses we're getting from each of them. But again, I mean, if we're testing with a $30, $40 meter and sending these out, I mean, what's it gonna cost to have these checked out? I mean, the shipping costs back and forth alone are gonna be half the cost of a meter. And that's the other thing. Sending this out to get tested, you know, I don't know how well it's gonna hold whatever it's been tested, but yeah. So anyway, I just know that that's on my mind, guys. I understand what we're testing with, and that this is quite frankly the best that we've got by far and away. And the anything close to it is not close to it at all. So With that, we're going to use the barrel connector that came with it. I'm going to use a 10 decibel. This is a negative 10 decibel attenuator. And this is only supposed to get up to 800 milliwatts. So really we don't need an attenuator until we get to 1 watt. Just in case this thing spikes, I want to protect the meter. The meter is only good for 30 decibels. And 30 decibels is 1 watt. So just in case, we're going to put that on there. And the way that an attenuator works, just so anybody who's new to this knows, let's say this puts out 1 watt, which is 1,000 milliwatts. And that's the upper limit of this meter. This guy is going to pull 10 decibels from that. So that's going to be 1/3 roughly of the input. I think the math in my head might not make sense with the way that I'm speaking it. So let's just say it's 1/3, right? Because 30 decibels. So we're down to, it'll take it down to 20. And then we're telling this meter that anything that coming in, we have a 10 decibel attenuator on it. So this is going to add that back into our measurement. So we're not losing anything. This is going to read the same whether I have this or not, as long as it's set properly in the meter, and we'll go into that. So the way this is set up, we're going to add our barrel connector. We're going to add our attenuator, which is going to sit right here, just like this. And then we're going to take our pigtail here and plug that right into here. Okay, so we want to have these fairly tight, but we don't want to crank them on crazy. They only have so many mating cycles. I think it's like 300 or 500 mating cycles for the life of these, so there is that. So now to power this guy, we're gonna use, this is a Lumineer 2500 series. This is the battery that I use in my transmitter, and it's got the little JST connector on there. So let's go ahead and check the battery on this. Off screen, I have a multimeter, and we're gonna check how much battery power this guy's got. And I was gonna film the multimeter, I just don't have a tripod set up for that. So unfortunately, I can't do that. So this is at 11.376 volts. So that's well within the range of the VTX. So we're gonna use that. Now we're gonna go into the power meter. And for this guy, we wanna go into the menu. We want megahertz. We're gonna go to 5800. So I'm gonna put that on race 5, which is 5806. We're gonna go to peak and leave that there. The attenuator, we got a negative 10 decibel on there. And then the span is 40 milliseconds. So we are all set with that. Let's go ahead and plug this guy in. So you can see we're on A1, power level 1. So you can see this kind of bouncing around. We've got A, 1, 1, A, 1, 1. So to enter the channel mode, it's just gonna be a quick press and hold. That's gonna put it into the channel mode, and then it's just gonna be a tap for each channel. So we're gonna put this on channel 5. Okay. Now once it goes back to its menu mode, you'll see it scroll through. It'll say A, 5, power level 1. So next, we're gonna change the band. And to do that, we're gonna push and hold for 2 seconds. And you can see the band is flashing, so we're gonna just a single press to race. You can see we are on race 5, power level 1, and we're putting out roughly 28 milliwatts. Well, let's go ahead and test our temperature. We are at 79 degrees. So now let's go ahead and move this up to, we are gonna go to power level 2. So in order to go to the power levels, we're gonna push and hold for 4 seconds. Okay, we are at power level 1. We're gonna go to power level 2. Okay, so as you look over here, we're at race 5, power level 2, and we are outputting 288 milliwatts. The power 2 is 250, so we are over the suggested values. So that's a good thing. All right, so as that settles out, we're at 279. Let's go ahead and measure this. We're getting a little warm, 87 degrees, still not bad. So our next power level 3 should be 500. And if we're overvalued here, I am definitely interested to see what this will do. So if I push and hold this for 4 seconds again, there's race, there's 2, there's 3. And as you can see, this thing is instant. Here we are right at 500. 518, 506, something like that. And if I let this thing settle a little bit, and while it's settling, let's check the temperature. So we are at 96 degrees, and we're settling down a little under 460, something like that. Yeah, okay. So it's I gotta get a holder for this meter, so I'm not holding it. But we're right around 500. So now our next power level should be right around 800. So we're gonna push and hold this for 4 seconds. There's 2, there's 3. Here's power level 4. And interesting. Interesting. That is power level 4. And it did raise, but not very much. Interesting. We're supposed to get 800 out of it, and we're getting only 500. Which to me is very strange. Very, very strange. It's almost like it didn't register, but it did. It did come up a little bit, but not much. And 500 milliwatts is still good. Now, if we look at this from 25 milliwatts to 200 milliwatts, and this goes up to 250, that's almost double your range. So from 250, we need, from 200 to double that again, we need 800. So this coming down to 500, we've doubled our range and went half, something like that. Again, I'm really, this is interesting. Let's go here. I'm gonna push and hold this for, so there's 4, we're back down at 1, and we're down here at 16, 17. Let me just check the temperature on this guy here. So we jumped up to 114 for that last test. So I'm wondering if there's like a limiter that we were hitting that was severely limiting the severely limiting the outputs. So what I'm gonna do, now that we've seen that with no cooling, let's go ahead and add some cooling. So again, as earlier stated, I think that the highest power level just wasn't being met because of a temperature issue. So now this is right in the wind, and I'm getting 44.6 degrees. So let's go ahead and go straight to power level 4 and see if we can get anything different out of it. This is power level 1, here's 2, here's 3, and here's 4. Okay. So that is exactly what was happening. If we go look here, we're at 640. Yeah, 700. Depending on how I hold this. 717. I mean, that's not that far off. We're like 80 off. And in terms of those higher milliwatts, that doesn't concern me at all. The choking back to 500 at 114 degrees is a little disconcerting, but you know, we're at 60 degrees Fahrenheit and still holding around 670, 680. So all around a pretty good performer. And the reason why I'm liking it, this is $16. You can have a very 640, 650. That's a fairly decent output. That you can afford to put these on a basher quad, guys. This is not bad at all. If you have one of these, because these have been around for a while, let me know in the comments below. Again, what do you think of these? How are these performing for you? Because from what I'm seeing, the temperature, as you can see, as long as there's air blowing over it, it holds. Again, it's not 800, but 650 is still a damn good number. So let me know how it's holding up for you guys. Do these things last? Can they take the abuse? But yeah, as far as output power, this is pretty good. So that's a look at that. Let's go ahead and shut this guy down, especially this fan. This is that's cold. That's cold in my hands. So let's just get a temperature here. Yeah, we're 70 degrees and holding steady at 650. So that to me is acceptable, especially at $16. That's I'm into that all day long. So this does have a pit mode, and I did want to test it, but I can't for whatever reason to get into it. So they have suggestions of how to get out of pit mode, but they don't mention how to get into pit mode. And I've tried a few different ways to get into it, namely, you know, pushing the button and holding it while powering it on. That doesn't work. Pushing the button for 15 seconds, and that doesn't work. I also tried going through the band selection to see if it was listed there, and it is not. So I'm not sure how you can get into pit mode with the button. You could most definitely do it with a smart audio. I did want to test the outputs of that because some races, they want to make sure that you're under a certain milliwatt under pit mode. So, but unfortunately I couldn't test that today. So let me know in the comments below if you have this and you know a surefire way with the button to get it into pit mode, so we can share that with everybody. But beyond that, that's just a quick look at the AKK X2. This is a 40 channel 5.8 VTX, and I really think that this one is going to find its way onto my basher builds. This is a very low cost and a relatively high output VTX. I know that, you know, we have our 2-watt VTXs on the market, but that's not where this guy settles. This guy is, you're going to put this on your budget builds that you want decent range, you want decent punch through of buildings and whatnot. And as long as you're flying around, this guy's going to give you that output. So I happen to like it. You know, the full 800, not quite, but close enough that I'll give it a pass. Again, I want to thank AKK for sending this out to me, and you know, hopefully they will send more. I enjoy doing these bench tests and reviews. One thing that I do want to add to this bench test, especially now that I have the overhead power supply, I think eventually I'm going to omit these batteries from the test, and I'm going to start doing a hardwired solder type of test. So I might 3D print a just kind of a stand here, something that will hold this in place so you guys can better see the screen and I don't need to fiddly screw with it. And it's also going to keep these connections nice and firm. And then somewhere where I can either like tape a VTX down for the test, and maybe I'll make a 30 by 30 and a 20 by 20 where I can put the VTX in place, so it'll stay put. and it'll have channels or something underneath it so that we can get some airflow around it. But my main thing is I want to test this, like everybody says, okay, from 7 to 24 volts or something like that. So I think I want to test the outputs at 7 volts, and I want to test the outputs at 28 volts and see if this degrades with a lower battery power, or if it still outputs the same. Because again, we tested this to 11.6 whatever. If I remember, I'll annotate the voltage that was in this battery. So that's not fully charged, but it's not empty either. So that's you know, right in the middle somewhere. So I definitely want to test these, and I won't over voltage them. So like this says to 24 volts. I'm not going to jam this thing with 26, but I do want to know, it says its lowest is 7. Well, what happens at 6.5? What happens at 5? Odds are it's going to shut off, or it's going to give you just faulty, you know, it's not going to work properly is basically the long and the short. But I want to show that. But more importantly, I want to see what it outputs at 7, and I want to see what it outputs at 24 and see if that makes a difference. So you can know. So that's going to be a thing coming up. But again, if I'm running a fan on it, it's just, I got to figure out a better way. I might even get a second power supply to do that. So this way I can run one to run this, and then run another off the fan, and then I don't need to worry about batteries as much, because you know, even just filming this, I am draining like 12 batteries. So if I can pull one out of the mix, that would be great. Even if I I can't put a splitter, because then well, maybe I can. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just rambling. So listen, if you guys enjoyed this video, click that thumbs up button. And if you haven't done it already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button, because you only get to do it once and it's fun. I'll catch you later. Peace.